Welcome to WyzeCast. I believe you can have it all and you don't have to struggle to get it. If life feels hard, your tasks seem impossible, or you just don't like the options laid out before you, I promise there is a better way. My name is Melanie McSally, your Better Way architect, and I welcome you to the WyzeCast podcast. Today's guest is Jackie Rubio, who turned her son's murder into a vehicle for quantum healing for herself and others, and I will let her tell you all about that. So welcome, Jackie.
Hi, thank you so much. I appreciate being here. I'm honored to talk to you and your audience today.
Yeah, I'm honored to have you. I always love seeing life through different perspectives. And when we were talking earlier and you were telling me about, just like all the things that you've had to overcome in life and all the tragedy and what you turned that into, I was so inspired. Can you tell people about how you got started with quantum healing?
Yeah, thank you for that too. I feel it makes me I appreciate that you think that it's inspiring. Um, yeah, I want to just say first a little disclaimer that it's kind of heavy. This is heavy, very difficult life stuff. So I want to make sure that the audience is prepared. Um, One thing I have to say is that I started out in life just a terrible childhood. I mean, there was domestic abuse, sexual abuse, physical violence. I mean, all of it. And um, unfortunately, I took that patterning and I took that with me. And I was a teen mom at 15. I had all four of my children by the time I was 23. I had no parenting tools whatsoever. I had a meth addiction. I had a toxic relationship with men. I'm replaying a lot of the same patterns that happened to me in my childhood. So it was really um, a difficult, early on life. And then it escalated, trying to be a single mom, make a living. I really turned to alcohol and I was a really bad alcoholic while I was raising my kids. Not just a typical, like, oh, wow, like, she drinks too much. I mean, like, unfunctioning alcoholic. So it really made it so that our household was just chaotic. It was a really harsh environment. And I did my best. I loved my kids to the best of my ability, but I unfortunately just played out those patterns in my family with them. So um, I, I always try to say that clearly because I'm sober and I'm really, really proud of my sobriety. And I went through a lot to get my sobriety and to maintain my sobriety. When it was about 5.5 years ago, I was in a very toxic relationship and I had a relapse. I'd been sober for a good year. I'd gone to rehab and I had a relapse and I actually set the house I had just bought. I literally had just bought that house. We'd been in it for 2 days and I set it myself on fire. And so I was deceased and resuscitated. I was in a coma for 10 days. I was in the burn unit for 6 weeks. I had three third-degree burn surgeries. I had 33% of my body burned. And I had a lot of rehab, physical and mental rehab to come out of after that. So that was the last day I took a drink. That was September 7th of 2020. And I was starting to, do what people do when they recover. I think I've always really wanted to help people, but when you're trying to help people from a place of personal injury, I guess, of unhealedness, of unawareness, then all you're really doing is just making things worse. You don't have any boundaries. You're not, able to sustain um, other human beings' emotions and things like that. So I did a nonprofit, a women's empowerment nonprofit. I was inspired by the women in the rehab center that I'd been with. And I was already really on the track of wanting to help others with their sobriety, really wanting to help other women who'd been through, domestic violence have a safe place to go, someone to talk to. And then it was about 2.5 years after the fire incident, I had come back to Oregon. And my oldest son, his name is Devon. He's such a just a tall, handsome kid. He's super. He was so different than the rest of our family. He was really shy, really polite. I'd spent quite a bit of time in church when I was raising my kids, when I was either sober or trying to get sober, divorced or trying to get divorced. So the kids were definitely exposed to Christianity, and he thrived on church, on the like the youth pastor and the pastor and the pastor's wife, that kind of family. He really just he really wanted to be with people like that because his own household was just so harsh and so chaotic. So he he just was a lot different than the rest of us. He had like this moral compass that was like black and white. This is the way life is, and this is the way it is, and there's no other way. And he really was, as an adult, he was the kind of guy that just all he ever wanted to do was be married and have a baby and be a dad, pay his taxes, have a 401k plan, save for his retirement. He was just such a straight-laced kid. He never liked to drink, he never smoked weed. I mean, he just wasn't interested in any of that. And he had met his wife, his ex-wife now, young in youth group. And then as adults, they kind of found each other in a more of a dating atmosphere. He was 20 and she was 18 when they got married. And he was very, like I said, he pledged, his purity and all of that. So he was never been with anybody besides his wife when they got married. And right away, they got pregnant with my grandson. And it was just immediate. As soon as that pregnancy happened, she just became a completely different human being. She wouldn't allow him to sleep in the bedroom with them. She wouldn't allow him to, spend time with the baby. She wouldn't allow any of his family to be with the baby. She just was really beyond protective to, I would say, like a mental health issue. And so he did his very best to, stay with that marriage, but it was really quickly after my grandson was born that she dissolved the marriage. And she actually was entered into a same-sex relationship right afterwards. So that really confused my son because you know, he was so sure about the Bible and like what was right and what was wrong. And so I know that it really caused him a lot of hurt, a lot of pain, a lot of confusion. And she also was breastfeeding. She breastfed my grandson till he was about 3.5. So in the state of Oregon, my son didn't get any overnight visits because she was breastfeeding. And he he just got the minimal amount of visits from her. So um it became like just really hectic for him. He was just trying to be a dad. He was just trying, to co-parent and all of that. And um, they did pretty good there for a while, and then they got to a point. She had a fiance, and they decided that they wanted to make all the rules. They had all the say in what goes on in my grandson's life, and my son just he tried to he tried to get some rights, and he tried to be the parent that he was supposed to be, but it's not that easy sometimes, especially when you're kind of dealing with a dynamic where there's two moms that he has to tell him know about, and one dad. So it was rough on him. And then we came to a point where um she began to make really terrible accusations against him, and he had like these are some pretty severe accusations, and they were things that could easily be disputed because of how big of an accusation they were. That he threw my grandson down 5 flights of stairs, and that he hit my grandson in the head with a beer bottle, that he put a gun to my grandson's head. These are all things that were just so, I mean, way outlandish and easily provable, thank goodness, because she had this kid as a doctor every day that, medically wise, if he got thrown down 5 flights of stairs, there would have been proof of that. So they went to court. They were going to court for a good year. She took his visits away, and he kept fighting for them, and he did everything he was supposed to do. Went through an investigation, and he stayed like in his. He just was so calm and so clear-headed, so methodical about the way that he, approached this, and he just worked so diligently to get his, visitations with his son back. And he had actually met another woman, a fiance, and they had to they had to push off the wedding because he had to have money for a custody attorney and stuff. And he took a second job so that he could pay, the legal bills. And what they decided was, through all of this process, the law enforcement, DHS, everybody said something's not right in the home, in her home. Like this is false accusations. There's some falsifying police reports. So he decided that he wanted to go ahead and ask for full custody. And that was happening, and it was actually kind of going well for him. And then it was December 16th of 2022, and he was really afraid of her. He was afraid of just the accusations that she could make. He'd been asking her to meet him at the police department to do any visitation swaps, and she just wouldn't do that. So he got a dash cam on his car, and when he pulled up to get my grandson, for his just routine weekend visit, he went by himself, which was really unusual for him. But it was Christmas time. So his fiance was out Christmas shopping for him. Her family was with her. She and I were on the phone together. We were planning our Christmas. We were going to have Grayson back for, Christmas, and Devon. Everything was just after a year of hell. I mean, a literal year of court cases, custody, um, just accusations. Life was like kind of like everybody was breathing again, and we were all planning and so excited. So I guess that this time he went by himself to pick up my grandson, and I mean, I wish he wouldn't have, but he did. And he had the dash cam rolling. He parked in a specific way to where it would capture everything that transpired when he picked up my grandson. And he went and he knocked on the door, and she opened the door and opened fire on him. There were no words spoken. There was no argument. There was no threats from him. He had no clue. So he knocked on the door. She opened the door. She opened fire on him, and she just killed him instantly. I mean, I guess like the dash cam picked up quite a bit of that. And then inside the home where my grandson was, the 911 call was picking up more shots that weren't on the dash cam. So Devon was just brutally murdered that day. And it was exactly 2 weeks after his 28th birthday. And that put me on a path of desperate searching, desperation. I mean, where do we go after we die? What happens to our consciousness? Is there a heaven? Is there hell? And it was interesting because when I had the fire, I didn't have a near death experience. I don't come back to you. I can't say I saw the light or I met with God or anything. But when I came back from that, I have to say I came back with this just thirst for what would have happened if I would have died, and I got really, really into near death experiences. I watched a lot of interviews with near death experiencers. I read a lot of books about near death experiences. I read like life in between life books, to find out like what happens to us. And I really thought that that was for me because of the experience I had. But then 2.5 years later, when he was murdered, every one of those interviews, every paragraph of every one of those books kept coming back to me when I would get so overly grieved that, he was gone, gone, gone. And so that was really an interesting synchronicity. I can't tell you how much I leaned on those near death experiences and the things I had learned and stuff like that after my own near death.
Yes. Wow. That's, first of all, I'm really sorry that you had to go through this, that you lost your son. and even before that, through your childhood trauma and your experiences with abuse. I'm just, my heart goes out to you for having lived through all of those things. So I just want you to, I want you to know that. Okay, so your son has been brutally murdered. You're in grief. You're leaning on your research and learning with near-death experiences, and um, and I know through our previous conversations that you eventually hear from Devon from the afterlife. How did that come about?
So I think that I started hearing from Devon right away. It's just when you don't have a lot of experience with the afterlife, or you don't, your belief systems are rigid, that you just don't allow for the messages to come through. And that's why in my book I wrote, I documented a lot about the signs that I was getting even early on, without fully understanding that they were signs. So, but the thing about my experiences with Devon after he was killed was that he didn't ever stop trying to reach me. And so after so many times of these random, weird things, you start to go, well, maybe I'm not crazy. Maybe it's not just because I'm grieving. So the more you go, what if? The more you open yourself and you think, maybe. The more you let your mind open up, and the more searching that you're doing, you'd be amazed at the more information that will come in. So I would say that I was grieving really hard, and I was trying to and I did maintain my sobriety. But I mean, that was a really big factor for me also. And on top of that, um, I was fighting for my custody of my grandson, because you would think in any normal situation that the mother kills the father and she's on trial for murder and it's on video, that the grandson would not be in her custody anymore. Unfortunately, that is not the way it played out in the state of Oregon. So she was still his main custodial parent, and she got to make all the choices where he went. And I went through 2 years of court, trying to, get a judge to let me, have him, or have contact with him at least. And I was denied all of that. So I was grieving the loss of my son to death, the loss of my grandson, knowing that he'd seen all of this, that he was involved in, it's just like there wasn't a single good thing that you could lean on. As far as like sometimes you find the brighter thing, and you can just grab onto that and you can hold on to that. I didn't have that. So I would find, I mean, it sounds so simple, but I mean, sometimes if there was just one pretty flower growing somewhere, I mean, it stood out to me, and it was, I needed that beauty. I needed that so much that I would take that and just hold on to it, like for all that I was worth. And so I think without realizing it, I was really cultivating gratitude and cultivating that what we're supposed to do, live one day at a time. I had no choice because there was nothing good in my circumstances. So any tiny thing that I could hold on to that was good, I held on to it with like a lifeline. So I really think that also opened me up further, just having that gratitude for the simple things. But I have to say that I was grieving really hard, and I was doing my best, maintain my sobriety, maintain my life where I could help my other children. I have 3 more surviving adult children that needed me. And I was like, I was traveling a lot, going from family member to family member, trying to just find comfort. And um I would hear him so much. I'd hear his voice in my head. And it would always think like, oh, that's what Devon would say to me if he were alive. Because it would be in his tone of voice. And he was such a smart butt. He was so sarcastic. He was like, just a total nerd. And the way that he joked and the way that he spoke. And I would hear it just like, so I would think to myself, well, if Devon was alive, this is what he would be saying right now. And there was so many times like it's very interesting because I spent so much time in the car isolated that when if I would get out and go into a restaurant while I was traveling, oh my gosh, I don't know what it was, but I would start openly crying, not just a little bit crying, like ugly crying, because the people were looking at me and I, could feel sympathy or something. So, and then I could hear Devin in my mind. He'd be like, Mom, you're crying so hard you got boogers on your face, like wipe off your face, Ma, and then I would feel so compelled to write that down. So if there was a receipt next to me, a napkin next to me, I would write down, you know, if Devin were alive, he was going to say, Mom, wipe your face, type thing. And I wasn't together enough, so it's not like I journaled or anything like that. But there were times when he would come in and I would hear what I thought he would say if he were alive so clearly that it just had to stop. Sometimes I would pull the car over and write it down real fast. And that was happening for the first, I would say about 3 months after he passed. For about 3 months I was driving, I was visiting family, I was trying to find solace wherever I could. And I remember, like, I stubbed my toe on the bed one time and I could hear him, ha ha ba, you stubbed your toe. And I would stop what I was doing and I would say, if Devin was alive right now on, March 28th, he would say, ha ha ma, you stubbed your toe. And I don't know why, but I just took that with me. But I really just thought that was a coping skill. I really just thought that was what somebody in deep grief would do, And so I had an experience about 8 months after he passed where I was on a cruise with Suzanne Giesman. She's a medium. I mean, like, she's really, her story is fantastic. And I felt like I could trust her. And so I went on a cruise and I met other parents from Helping Parents Heal. It's a support group for parents who've lost their children. And they don't just, get to have a regular support group. They actually talk about the afterlife. They actually allow you to, they help vet mediums and people scientists, who are on the leading edge of, consciousness and things like that. So I was on this cruise and I got to meet all these people. And I had a roommate who had also lost her son, and she gave me Reiki. And I have to tell you, like, 8 months of pure hell. And I had, for the first time, 30 minutes of respite, of peace, of calm, of clarity. Um, I don't know what it was, but I just said to myself, I don't know what this is, but I have to do this. I really have to do this. I have to learn this. I have to do this for other parents, other moms, because of what the benefits I got from that 30 minutes of a life-changing peace after what I'd been going through. So that was like a big part of my story was, having a mediumship situation that was valid and trustworthy, and then meeting a tribe of other people who believe the same as I do, and that made it normal to me, of getting an energy healing session that brought me peace and love. And so I came back and I took an automatic writing course. Well, I've been automatic writing the entire time. I just didn't have a name for it. I just didn't have a label for it. So I realized that every time that I heard Devin, when I said, if he were alive, this is what he'd be saying to me. That was my son. He was right there. He was right there talking to me, being silly, being sarcastic, being funny, being lighthearted, playful, like he was in our relationship when he was alive. And then I began to do my automatic writing much more intentional. I would, by that time, I literally ran right out when I got home and got my first level 1 Reiki attunement because I meant it when I said, this is for me. I want to do this for other people. So I would open up my Reiki and I would set the space and I would be intentional about it. And I would start to write with Devin. And because I guess I didn't even know I was doing it, I had honed into listening to him, listening to, picking up the thoughts and being able to write them. It kind of came natural. And it did come natural. And so I was doing that with Devin, and all of a sudden it sort of changed. Um, Instead of, he would say, he'd say we instead of I, he'd start saying we. And he was telling me things, and it was really, really like in poetry. And it was really like a high vibration, and it became we. So, we are all one. We love you. It just, he was part of it, but then, so he'd come in and he'd joke around with me a little bit in the beginning, or, give me some daily advice of whatever I was going through. But then I would feel like this much bigger, I guess, amount of energy. And then I would tell me things, and I feel like sometimes they tell me the secrets to the universe, to be honest with you, like concepts I had no idea about. And that's sort of the baseline of how I started to hear from Devon. And I then sort of went beyond just writing it. I mean, there's been times where I just can speak it directly. Um, which it's funny because Devin always talks about, being more effective. He wants to be more effective in like the whole writing, because I write it by hand. I cursive write. It just feels right to me. And then I gotta read my handwriting, and then I gotta retype it and stuff. So sometimes it just comes out in direct voice. Um, and it's just a big part of like intuition and healing work when I do Reiki. A lot of times, especially if it's for another parent, Devin will come in and he shows me that he's going to be part of the healing. He's got his hard hat on and his safety vest on, and I can see his big, huge work boots all tied up, and he's ready for work. And then sometimes I can see him like he's leaning on the shovel, like, "Yeah, you got it, Ma. You could do this," But he's almost always in my parent healings, and at that time, in those parent healings, I mean, a lot of times I can hear from their kids a little bit. I get a message for them, or Devin tells me a message for for them from their children. So it's just been a big part of how I became a healer, for one. And once you become a Reiki practitioner, the psychic abilities are phenomenal. And you don't always, I didn't know what was going on. So I was really, really blessed. I found a teacher, Lisa Campion. She wrote The Art of Psychic Reiki. And when I read that book, I was like, oh my gosh, like she knows exactly what I'm talking about. This is exactly what's happening to me. So she's, I've been with her for quite a while now, and I can, again, intentionally on purpose, use the psychic ability. So I went beyond just, Reiki, and then there's all that psychic work that I've been doing and the intuitive that comes with that. And then I took, Lisa Campion's quantum courses, and it's a healing practice. It's different than Reiki, and it's like, Reiki heals with vibration, and which is beautiful. Our physical body needs that kind of healing. Our emotional body needs that kind of healing. But quantum healing heals with the speed of light. And it's a higher frequency, and it's a much faster, rapid healing, and you just go to the core of it. So sometimes you do a quantum healing, it's not even this lifetime that you're healing. You'll find that core wound of what's causing your illnesses or your behavior issues or whatever come from even a past life. So the quantum healing will get all of that, and it's very quick. It's very high frequency, and um it's very effective. Like Devin, I just heard him right now. He's like, "Tell him it's effective."
Yeah, that's an awesome segue. So you've touched on so many things that I just want to recap, because so many of my community members are new to trusting their intuition. It's not like they didn't have it or they didn't know they had it. It's the trusting and the discerning between intuition and ego, or the limiting beliefs versus the positive reinforcement. And so what I really heard from you was that you had this trusting in the not knowing, of just sort of going with the flow of like, I don't know why I'm hearing this, or I don't know if this is real even, but but there's not a lot of good in my life right now, and this is good. And I'm going to hold on to this, and I'm going to trust it, and I'm going to flow with it. And then starting to recognize the patterns. So, even if somebody has not lost a child or another loved one and they're not going through grief, they could still relate to your story because of intuition can sometimes be this intangible thing to latch onto, right? It's this powerful tool that we all have, and we have been raised in a society that says it doesn't exist. And so so there's a lot of people in this world who um don't believe they can trust it. And so your story is very relatable. Like I don't have any children, nor have I lost any, obviously. But your story is still very relatable. So I just wanted to recap that from the perspective of the broader view, to say how relatable it is. And I'm going to take a brief respite for a second. But when we come back, I really want to dive into this Reiki versus quantum, and what it is, and how people might leverage it. This whole podcast is about finding a better way. And um, so having alternative healings that, again, our society has been so against these like non-traditional forms of anything, but specifically healing. So, you know, to just like, you don't have to speak about it from this place of, I wrote the book on it, but more so from this place of like, how did you use it? And how are you using it to help others? Um, so, from this perspective of like, of, you know, uh, maybe I'm carrying some limiting beliefs that I don't even know I'm carrying. So you're talking about generational healing, and you talked about this early in your story of mistakes that you had made. And I know offline we talked about blueprint healing and all sorts of different things that might blow people's minds. And not everybody has to subscribe to whether or not this works or not. But this show is all about different perspective and finding different ways and learning things you might not have heard about yet, because maybe they will work for you, or maybe you'll resonate with them. So that's what I want to dive into next. But before I do, this year is a universal 1 year, which means it's the beginning of the next 9-year cycle. And this cycle is all about possibility. So I want to invite all of my community, my people out there, into your year of abundance, where we are planting our seeds of abundance and flowing with the duality of planning for the future while living in the present. The Abundance Program, all of our members experience 2 live experiential events per month, and Jackie will be joining us this Thursday for a quantum healing experience, which I'm super excited about. You'll have full access to the Wise Community platform, including the private members only area, all event replays, integration prompts, quarterly and monthly themes, and a special gift which I mail to you. And of course, we have a community of heart-centered humans that are very supportive and all working on their decade of abundance. So this is your moment to commit to your most abundant era yet. And if you would like more information, I will put the link in the description below. It's stepinto.wyze.community/abundance, because there is always a better way, and you actually can have it all. So, Jackie, thank you for letting me take a moment to share the abundance error with everyone. So you're talking with Devon. You're starting to really get into this is real. I'm talking to my son. He's guiding me. He's also seems to be the conduit for even a bigger energy of wisdom. And you start to lean into Reiki and quantum. And so, why don't you take a step back and just like give us a little bit of what is it? What does it mean to you? These quantum healing and Reiki healing.
Okay, well, I'm certified in traditional Reiki, so the Usui Reiki. Um, and I had an amazing woman who's been a Reiki master for like 35 years. I swear, she was like one of the first to quit a corporate job, and which I think she was a nutritionist, and worked in a hospital. And 35 years ago, when Reiki just wasn't what it is now, it was not nearly so accepted and widespread. So I felt really comfortable and safe, with her being the person that I learned from. And so you just take that, it's tradition, and it's, I don't know, you just take that, the symbols and all of that. For me, it made a big difference because I still was just, my mind was having a hard time grasping, the spirit world and, all this stuff out there, when I took my first Reiki. So the fact that it was so traditional and it had all the symbols and things like that, I think it made it easier for me, not everybody, but for me to fall into it, to not doubt it. Because the thing, there's a few things I love about Reiki. Number one is Reiki can do no harm. So even if you don't know what you're doing and you're a Reiki practitioner, you're not doing the healing. Reiki's doing the healing. And as a practitioner, you're receiving a healing as Reiki channels through you. So, I mean, that's a win-win, right? And you can't do any harm, and Reiki has its own intelligence. So a practitioner could be working on somebody's body in a certain area because they think that that's, like, the person said, hey, I got a broken ankle, can you send it some Reiki? So you're over there, you're giving that broken ankle Reiki. But Reiki is intelligent and it knows that, well, you have a broken ankle, but the real problem is you've got blood circulation that's cut off in the right knee. So then actually that's where, so I guess, I lean heavily on the fact that I'm not doing the healing, that I'm just a channel for it, and that I said yes to this amazing, beautiful healing modality and technique. And I get to just have a blessing myself and give blessings to other people. So that's how I feel about Reiki. It's in it, like I said, it's a vibrational healing. So we have our physical body, and we have our emotional body, we have our mental body, we have our spirit body, we have our quantum body. And so Reiki, especially does a lot of work on, on your physical body, your physical healing, your mental, your emotional state, your, just the energy that you pull into yourself from other people, from just living your life. Reiki's phenomenal at that, and we need that. So I don't feel like there's one better than the other or only one, but the quantum is a much different, um, it's a much different technique. It's a much different modality. So basically, we have our human bodies, we're in the 3D. Our, ethereal, astral bodies, we're in the 4D. That's where you're going to find, the spirits, Devon, the spirit world, all of that. And then we have the 5D, and that the 5D and beyond is where you're going to find the quantum at. And all that means to me is that my mind has expanded enough for me to reach a higher level of knowledge, reach a higher level of helpers, of guides, of wisdom. So, and it's the same for when a person's getting a quantum healing. Their consciousness is going to start opening them up to a more of a 5D situation. So I bring them into a quantum, healing where we're a little bit outside of our physical body, obviously outside of our astral bodies, and now we're up into the quantum body. So I hope that helps. There's a lot of science behind this, and I give anybody, go research quantum entanglement, research observers theory, string theory, all of that. I have absorbed the information and I'm comfortable with what I understand from it, but to try to repeat it, I would probably butcher it. So I try not to do that. But there is also as far as the quantum body and the quantum entanglement, things like that, there is a lot of science behind that. So I want to give an example of what happened to me when you ask like how you use the quantum. So um, we have guides and Reiki guides. I have Reiki guides. I have an amazing, oh my gosh, amazing loving relationship with my Reiki guides. I actually write about who they are in my book because it's mind blowing. But I also, when you get into quantum, you have quantum guides as well. And I like was trying to reach that space where I could have that same relationship as I do with my Reiki guides. And it doesn't feel the same. It's really light. My guides, I could just see them. They're just, they're healing and they're doing what they're doing. They're doing it this just all these lights and all this speed of it that happens. And the images that I see are much different than a Reiki healing. But I was talking and I was, really expanding myself, really expanding my consciousness, really reaching, outside of my astral body to find, my quantum guides, and I was bringing them my health. I've always suffered, and had a hard time with weight management and the comfort eating. And after Devon died, I really went back to that, how I didn't exercise and I just was, feeding my face, trying to feel better. And I was like, so I thought my health was, the fact that I needed help with what I ate and how much exercise I got. And so I was talking to the quantum guys like, hey, I need help with this if I'm going to be, a container to do quantum healings, right? This is my human brain. This is what I think. Well, that I'd been a smoker for years. And when Devon died and I was trying to fight for my grandson, I decided to vape. I didn't want to go to court smelling like cigarettes. And, so I decided to vape. Like I thought that was going to be healthier. And I didn't like during the time of, after Devon passed, you wouldn't believe how much I vaped because it's not like a cigarette. You don't smell bad afterwards. You don't have to leave and walk, a mile away and hope nobody sees you smoking a cigarette. So, you just vape almost anywhere in the house. It was excessive. So the next morning I was in meditation and I was, connecting to the quantum guides, and all of a sudden I couldn't breathe. I was like, I could not breathe. Like my face started to kind of like turn purple. And I was like, it's like when you swallow something and you can't get a breath, but I hadn't swallowed anything. And then all of a sudden, here's the vape floating through my mind's eye. And I heard loud, this is what it's going to feel like if you don't stop vaping. And I never even thought about vaping being an issue because it didn't smell bad and I wasn't smoking cigarettes. And I never once thought that was something that I needed to prioritize. Of course, we're always like, oh yeah, we've got this we need to work on, this we need to work on, but I certainly didn't put that at the top of the list. And so they floated the vape through and they said, like, this is what's going to happen to you if you don't quit vaping. So I, after, 40, 35 years of being a smoker and then a heavy, heavy vapor, just quit. I just quit vaping. It wasn't, I I used a lot of meditation for it, used a lot of Reiki for it, like leaned on my quantum guides for help, did some NLP stuff with my NLP coach. And that was like in September. And I haven't vaped since. So, that's, just an example of what the quantum did for me and how I thought that it was, I was unhealthy because of this reason. And this is what I needed help with. and that has came after, they've definitely helped with my diet and exercise and put me on a better, healthier track. But yeah, I don't think anybody was more surprised than me when they floated that vape in my mind's eye and said, this is what it's going to feel like if you don't quit vaping. I was like, what? I
Well,
hope that's a good enough explanation of what the quantum is, because I mean, it it's it's so thrilling for me to experience it, but I'm certainly not a scientist, so it's harder for me to.
yeah, well, it's interesting because I subscribe to the model of take what you need, leave the rest. And so there's a lot of things in life where there's aspects of it that resonate with me, and I don't worry about all the stuff that doesn't resonate with me, meaning I don't prescribe to it, so I don't feel like I need to um, resonate and prescribe to an entire methodology to take the portion of it that does resonate with me. And so there's a lot that I know about Reiki and a lot that I know about quantum healing, but I actually don't also feel the need to like dive into all the science and everything. I'm just like, this portion works for me and I'm good with that.
Yeah.
Um, I had a friend who did uh she was a chiropractor, or she is a chiropractor, but she does no popping. So it's kind of like Reiki, but it's chiropractic work. And she performed it on me back when my back was broken. So I broke my back when I was um 16 or 17 years old. I was in a horrific car accident, and I had compression fractures in 7 places in my spine. And
Wow.
I had gone, by the time I met her, I had gone over a decade, probably like 15, 16 years without doing the actual math, of living in pain constantly. And so she starts, doing this chiropractic work on me. And because I had chiropractic, because I had scoliosis, so I had popping type chiropractic work, and she didn't actually touch me. So I used to call it voodoo. I'd be like, I'm going to see my doctor friend for voodoo today. um, and because I would feel great after I left the session, but I didn't understand it because she didn't touch me, and so I was like, I don't know what you do, but it works great. you know
Right.
um, and then a couple years later, I found myself in the hospital with a septic kidney infection. They put me on Tramadol, which is a very potent painkiller, and because I had this terrible back pain, and the septic kidney infection was making it like infinitely worse. So they gave me this Tramadol, and they gave me like a dosage for a linebacker. It was I'm not a linebacker. I'm a little small petite thing. And so when I went to go leave the hospital, which I wanted to leave early, because I was not having a good experience. And they were like, you can't leave because you're on this drug and we can't prescribe you to leave with this drug. And I was like, I will just not take it. I'm leaving. And so they're like, okay, well, we can't give you a prescription for it. I'm like, okay. And they're like, you're gonna be in a lot of pain when you come off it. And I'm like, I understand. I'm leaving anyway. And so it took 48 hours for it to completely leave my system. And when it did, I had no pain, none. Even my original back pain from my broken back was gone. And it took me 2 weeks to actually say it out loud. But I went back to the same doctor friend and I was like, secret. And she's like, what's your secret? And I'm like, I don't have any back pain, but I'm afraid it'll come back. And she's like, okay, well, let's take an x-ray. And so she took an x-ray, and my back was completely healed, like
Wow.
100%. No scoliosis, no compression fractures. And mind you, when I was 17, they told me that they would never heal, that I wouldn't want them to heal because that would mean my spine compressed and I'd have no mobility in that area. And so I had a, like a better than perfect spine now. And what had happened was the Trimadol reset my nerves. So even though my back had healed prior, um, my nerve receptors were still sending pain signals. So I still thought I was in pain, even though my back wasn't broken anymore. And so I really think, I really attribute the actual healing of my spine to the work that she did with me all those years before. Um, I have no proof, obviously. Like a lot of the, spiritual things, we don't have actual proof, but I also don't need it, like I have a healthy
Yeah.
back. That's my proof.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. Oh my gosh. Well, congratulations.
Yeah, thanks. So as part of our year of abundance, I have split the year into quarters, and right now we're in a winter season. It's not necessarily has to do with the weather outside, but just winter is all about self-care and reflection and pouring into yourself. And so in January, we did self-care for the physical body and what does it mean to fill your cup and take responsibility for keeping your cup full. And this month in February, we're doing the soul. And so I asked them the same reflection questions of what would it mean to fill your soul's cup. And so when you and I talked, we talked about the quantum healing and revisiting your blueprint to see if you've sort of gotten off path or made any mistakes or whatever. So can you talk a little bit about that sort of as a preview for what we're going to do on Thursday?
Yeah, so I really like doing it's a group healing, and I really like doing it. It's um you know it's getting your soul's blueprint. So we tend to get errors on the way through life, right? Like our soul wants to do this and we sort of took a right turn instead of a left turn, which we all know that that's fine, that our soul's happy to have whatever experience. But at some point, it becomes on the human body a drag. When the soul wanted to go one way and the human body kept going left instead of going straight down this path, soul is fine with it, but our humanness, our human body begins to drag. We begin to fill up. We begin to get exhausted. We begin to, get our neurons firing incorrectly because the soul knows we're supposed to be here. We want to go this way. So, restoring your human blueprint. So, what I do is I always start out with a little bit of Reiki. I like everybody to, have been relaxed and open and ready to receive. And then I take us as a whole group, I take us up as high as they'll let me go, as high to the highest, to the ascended masters, to the highest realm that we're allowed to go. And our guides go with us. And so the way I see it is I see each of us, you know, we have more and more doors. We have parallel life doors that open up. We have past life doors that open up. We have our future life doors that open up. And that's all of a replica of us. And I take all of it up to, like I said, to the highest, point that I can, that I'm allowed to go with you guys. And then I just watch them, they open us up and they put what would be our original blueprint. I see it. It's really, it's not, this is not sciencey, you guys. This is just my own way that I interpret things, but I mean, I see like an entire cluster of stars, of, planets, of whatever. And it's this like blueprint and it goes down and our bodies just sort of like disintegrate. And all of a sudden there's just these points where it's like the stars, get bigger and brighter and bigger and brighter until it's like I could feel it. It's integrating, and then it just lands on us. And it's all of the future lives, all of the past lives, all of the parallel lives. And it just restores us. So if there's any errors, if you open the door to a parallel life or you open the door to this life and there's been an error, there's been a way that we went off our path a little bit, all of that goes up there and gets restored. That gets erased and we get rebalanced. That's how I see the healing. It's a powerful healing. And then I always end about 15 minutes of Reiki because I'm not going to let your community walk away still in 5D, still in the quantum field. So we use the Reiki to kind of come back down, use it to vibration, to integrate what's happening into our physical bodies. It's an amazing healing. It's a powerful healing. And I don't leave people in the quantum for more than about 15 minutes. Um, yeah, because I mean, it's really high frequency.
Awesome. Awesome. Okay. So I have so many questions.
It's okay, no.
And the questions are like, I have a very strong connection with my own intuitive guides, and so I hear them asking the questions that other people will have. And so um
Sure.
so one question I'm hearing is like, how how will they know it worked, like I get that a lot from people, is how do I know that it worked? How do I know that I got the most out of it?
Yeah, I mean, I understand that. So with Reiki, I always they just have to understand that Reiki works whether you believe it does or not. So as far as that goes, and it's always for our highest best and our highest good. So with the quantum, a lot of people go lights out. Like they're just out. They just knock out during a quantum healing because the frequency is so high. Or a lot of times people, because our left brain does get so loud and so animated and so, in the way of something like this, sometimes it's a couple days later. They'll have a dream, or they'll just all of a sudden get smacked with like feeling so much lighter, so much better. So oftentimes, mostly right away, there's a release. You feel, you just feel lighter. You just feel more airy, and then a lot, and if you don't get it right away, you do get it. You get it within a couple days. So that's like, I mean, I can't tell you exactly how each individual is going to react, but from doing the healings and from getting my own healings, quantum healings in a group, and having all of us share afterwards, and then my community share afterwards, that the number one thing is a lot of release, a lot of just like a burden that feels off of you, and sort of like more clear minded too. You leave the session like a little bit more clarity, a lot more clarity than you came in.
Awesome, awesome. And so, there are people at every level in the community, and so they might identify with intuitive, they might not, they might identify with spirituality, they might not. And so, just to like set the stage and put everybody at ease, do they need to be anything special or do anything special to come and attend and be a part of this session?
No, no, they don't. I actually, I before we get on the call, I do a fairly lengthy meditation for myself, and I'll clear all of your members. I'll clear their spaces. I'll clear, us as a group, so that when the healing comes, it's more effective. The only thing I do suggest is during the quantum portion, and they're not exactly going to know when I go from Reiki to quantum. Some people are very sensitive to it and they do know, but it's just to repeat some positive affirmations. Being in the quantum, being that direct to your soul, being that direct to your oversoul, it's a great place to give affirmations. It's a great place, to make statements about what you want and how you're going to get it.
Awesome. Cool. Okay. And so just to let everybody know, because this will live on in the YouTube land. Um, so it's Thursday, the 12th of February in the year of 2026. But we have a replay, and if you're a member of the Year of Abundance, Era of Abundance, then you get access to the replay. So you don't have to join live if you're unable to, or if you're experiencing or watching this after the fact. So, with that, how can people get in touch with you?
Well, they can come on my website. It's jackiesuzanne.com. And I would like to mention that I did write a book. It's launched, it's a bestseller. It's called From Murder to Messages. And it's got a lot of my story and a lot of my son's story in the book. It's got a lot of great referrals and references, sort of like what I used to get through, what I got through. So that should be included on the website also. But I'm really active on my Facebook page. It's Light After Darkness, and I do a free healing every month. And because the book really brought a lot of my own friends, of Devon's own friends, that don't haven't heard of spirituality or Reiki, things like that, they have a lot of questions. So I try to keep that, somewhat beginner friendly too. There's never any questions that, are too small or too big to bring to these healings.
Yeah, and I think I heard you say earlier that you have a community um, of moms that might be grieving their own losses.
Yeah, the helping parents heal is a big part of it. I just got to start to be a co-facilitator of a branch that's specifically tailored to parents who lost their children through murder. So we hadn't had that yet, and it's something that I'm going to be able to, also facilitate separate from my own stuff.
Well, it's what's such a powerful resource that you give, and I am so sad that there's a call for it, like that we have a need for parents who've lost children through murder specifically. The fact that we need that just breaks my heart.
It's heartbreaking, to be honest. It is. It's a group you don't ever want to be a part of, but if you are in the group, you're so grateful for it.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, Jackie, it's been such a pleasure being here with you today, listening to your expertise, learning about your story and how you got into quantum healing and Reiki. And once again, I'm so sorry for your loss, and I'm sorry for the tragedy that you've had to go through in life.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Okay, so just to wrap up, I want to thank everyone for being here, for watching WyzeCast today. Jackie, once again, I'd like to thank you for sharing your wisdom. If any of this resonated with you, please check Jackie's website out. I will put the link in the description, and also I will put the link to her Facebook group in the description. And of course, like, hype, share, comment, do all the things. It helps the algorithm, and it helps this to reach all the people that it needs to reach. So if there are mothers out there who have lost their children through murder, they can connect with Jackie. So please help us get the word out for Jackie. And once again, I thank you all for being here. Remember, if life feels hard, if your tasks seem impossible, or you just don't like the options laid out before you, there is always a better way. You can have it all. My name is Melanie, and I will see you on the next episode of Podcast.